The students who are visual learners are going to enjoy advantages in foreign language, especially where it comes to vocabulary, because uh, unit specific vocabulary is going to come with illustrations, whether they're digital flashcards or illustrations in the textbook. Um, And even in the cases where there are no illustrations, visual learners are going to understand, visual learners are even going to be able to remember words according to where they see them on a page. Um, where it comes to accessing resources and understanding the somewhat abstract concept of point of view in verbs, of course, visual learners are going to be able to remember a chart that all foreign language students are exposed to that organizes first, second, and third person points of view in the plural and the singular. Clearly, oral learners are going to enjoy an advantage where it comes to listening, where it comes to picking out words, where it comes to hearing sounds, where it comes to mimicking sounds, which is one of the stepping stones toward understanding small bits of the target language, especially authentic samples of the language, because students are going to need to be able to repeat what they've heard in order to sort of taste it in their own mouths and hopefully access some of their memory. Oral learners will also tend to hear the tones in a language, and perhaps, in as much as they're able to transfer their oral learning into spoken performance, they're going to have less trouble with pronunciation than other students, which basically grants them greater access to more practice in the language. As much as a student can identify and recognize the tone and typical intonation in a language, they're going to have advantages where it comes to pronunciation of words, pronunciation of sentences, and even they'll even develop their instincts where it comes to word order. It seems to me that the oral learners will enjoy advantages where it comes to progressing in in speaking the language and understanding the language, and even in reading and writing the language. Tactile learners are going to need, of course, manipulatives. They're going to learn word order by having words on individual cards that they can move. A verb chart is probably going to make a lot more sense to a tactile learner if they can see it animated, where normally I would show a chart with the pronouns in English for first through third person in the singular and the plural, and then right next to it I would show a chart with the pronouns in Spanish. And many students will understand that they correspond. Where it comes to tactile learners, and specifically tactile learners in special education, it is worth it to create a presentation where they see one chart with the pronouns in English and where they can actually watch the pronoun I, fly away out of that space and have the pronoun yo fly in to replace it. Um, on one side, I see that the tactile learners have needs and necessities that oral and visual input does not always serve. On the other hand, I see that tactile learners, when given the specific sorts of stimulus they need, can benefit greatly from them, as though they sort of hold out and wait for just the right stimulus to learn something, but once they get it, they keep it forever. Uh, I also think that the sorts of students who benefit from writing words, students who remember words better when they write them, who and all students, including the oral and visual learners, everyone needs to practice with repetition. Arguably, the muscular memory, of which we take such great advantage in foreign language when we drill and practice, is a tactile learning method. The kinesthetic learners, or the interpersonal learners, aside from perhaps needing to be granted certain accommodations, like in my room we have wheelie chairs and chairs that rock back and forth that can help absorb nervous energy. It would seem that the kinesthetic learners require an element of realism. Um, while authentic material can be used to teach students reading and to teach students listening skills, the kinesthetic learners need to interact in dialogues. The kinesthetic learners are going to have a far better chance of learning to ask and respond to questions when the questions are meaningful, which is ironically what makes dialogues somewhat limited in their effectiveness, because they often involve taking on roles. And the interpersonal learners, the kinesthetic learners, are going to have to be convinced of these roles in order for them to be realistic enough to help. Personally, what I prefer to do is have students ask each other real questions, questions to which they might not already know the answers. I believe that this is the sort of authentic interpersonal reaction that can engage a kinesthetic learner. I don't see kinesthetic learners only as learners who need to be literally moving, but they need to do something meaningful. And if the questions that they're asking and responding to are real, then they may be able to stay in their seats. When they realize that the teacher who's speaking to them in Spanish and saying something about a cat is talking about his cat and what the cat literally did last night, they perk up, they become focused, and their behavior changes.